Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and I am pleased, actually delighted to be joined by Bertie, who has just graduated from Witcher School. Witcher Bertie, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I feel like a changed man.
Good. I mean, I won't keep you from your existing contracts for too long, but so Witcher School is a real thing in Poland that you can go to, right?
Absolutely. You can pay your hard-earned money to attend a weekend-long, it's like 2.5 days long, live-action role-play event where you will be given classes in fencing, leatherworking, monster hunting, magical signs, archery, survival, and then at the end of it, if you pass the trials they put on, you will become a Witcher.
Wow. Well, I guess it sounds pretty intense, to be honest. It sounds quite grueling.
It was a lot more grueling than I had expected. I think there's a perception that when you pay money to go somewhere, you're getting a kind of holiday experience, but it felt at times like a military boot camp.
Wow.
We were on the first night, for instance, after quite a long day's travelling. We were woken up in the middle of the night because a werewolf had escaped. The princess who was there turned into a werewolf. Oh. She escaped and we had to go out into the freezing cold. That was another running theme. It was freezing cold. We had to go out into the freezing cold to find her, bring her back. And then we were up at 7 the next morning to do drills and press-ups, lots of running, loads of press-ups and fencing as well. And it was tough. I must admit, by Saturday lunchtime, so this was after a full day, like an evening on Thursday, the night on Thursday night, then full day Friday. By Saturday, I was having a big wobble in my room where you can have your room in game if you want, or you can keep it out of game. We had it out of game, and
right.
I was struggling at that point. I'd had enough. I just wanted to sleep.
Yeah, fair enough.
But then, as the event typically did, something happened. And I was brought straight back in, and by the end of it, people were hobbling and wounded. There's some guy dislocated his shoulder, which
seriously,
which couldn't be anything. That could happen in any kind of physical sport.
Very true.
But there were busted knees and ankles and things, and it's kind of uneven ground in the dark because there were no electric lights or anything. It weren't allowed. It was too modern and out of character. But by the end, everyone was smiling. Even those with sprains and things were happy they'd done it. And I think people were wobbling along the way, but that kind of gave rise to camaraderie and
good.
It was quite a powerful effect in the end.
So tell us about your character, because you were given it in advance of the event, right?
Yeah. So we got a character sheet. Like if you're familiar with pen and paper role-playing games, and if other people are too. A character sheet that they designed, and each of the students had theirs. I was Lester, simply Lester, which doesn't sound like a very witchery name.
I don't know, like Geralt. What are the other ones? There's Eskel. It's cooler than Eskel.
I was Lester, and I was a spy for the Temerian army.
Oh wow!
So I had a whole backstory of growing up as a peasant, not finding what I wanted to do, joining the army, but then leaving. And then when I left, I bumped into a monster. Whoops, hello! And somehow killed it. But that drew a lot of attention. The soldiers found me, and were like, "Oh, game's up for you, Sonny, unless you become a spy at Witcher School."
Right.
So not given much of a choice, I went to Witcher School to spy, and I had to. When I was there, they gave you suggestions of things you might like to do when you're there. One was kind of a task to find the Temerian captain, who turned out to be a lady called Captain Nia, and relay information to her. So she gave me. I made contact, like secret contact with her. And she gave me a task to kind of go into the Grand Master's room to steal a diary about the book, about the school. And by the time I'd done this, geared myself up for it, someone had already nicked it. But there I was, like, rooting through his stuff in his room, and I roped someone in my group in to help me who didn't know what he was in for. And he's like, "What are you doing in there?" And I was like, don't worry, it's all right.
Wow. So it seems like a pretty decent, like, deep LARP then.
Yeah,
it's not just doing drills and stuff.
This was the thing, like from Thursday evening, after we got into our costumes, had a dinner with everyone, everyone was in costume but not in character at that point. After that, and after some workshops explaining how the game works, there is a sex card mechanic, so they can, because that's such a famous thing from the games.
Yeah.
And the fiction. that you can, establish a relationship with the character, and they can give you a sex card to be like. So then it sort of stops any kind of odd.
Right.
But it's still it's a bit odd. I didn't
Okay.
get any sex cards, but I did see some.
Oh, so it's a mechanical way around not actually having to copulate with someone. Okay,
yeah.
that's sensible.
Yeah, but
Okay.
still having it. And then there are safety words in colours: red, yellow, and green. Red if you're just like, no, stop, I can't do this.
Right.
Yellow if you're sort of alright with it. Green if like maybe a difficult situation is going to happen, and you're totally okay with it. You just want someone to know that you're okay with that.
Right.
I never used the words. I didn't hear anyone else use the words.
It's nice to know that's there, though.
But that's there. And things like combat. And you have to willingly disbelieve, obviously there's no magic in the world, in our world. And we're not using real swords, we're using latex weaponry.
Right.
And they're not real monsters.
Yeah.
And so if they hit you, of course they don't slice your face open.
Yeah.
But, you buy into that. And there was a great collective spirit of people doing that. And there was no one going, oh, yeah, no, mate, I'm all right.
Yeah. I guess you don't go to the middle of the wilderness in Poland in order to go, yeah, no, mate, I'm all right, to be fair. Though, right, you just said there's no magic in the world, but you also said that you spent time learning the signs. Now, from playing The Witcher 3, I know that, that is the sign for I'm going to confuse you and you're going to do whatever I want.
Well, yeah, we had to learn, so there's a... Oh my god, I have to try and remember it now. So I'm pretty sure one went down across like that, and then you pull back to get to bring the power, a bit like Ryu's Hadouken,
right?
And then you launch forwards and Igni, and we did this because there was a place of power at the school, obviously, because we're just adepts and we had our medallions at this point. In fact, I crafted a medallion. So,
naturally.
Let me just get my leather pouch that I also made. And here's the medallion I made.
Oh, it's lovely. I'll get a close up of this once we're done. He looks.
So I got two, so I could be Grandmaster now.
Wow.
But I couldn't be Grandmaster.
It's as easy as that.
Actually, the Grandmaster did give me his medallion because I spoke up for him at a trial at the end.
Intrigue.
I don't want to there was an overarching story that was played out at the time, as well as us trying to project our stories. So, magical signs. This was a lesson I was concerned about, because this is very much make-believe.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're hitting people with swords, they're latex swords, but you're still hitting people.
Yeah, you're still hitting people, right.
So I was concerned about this, but the guy taking it, Master Dirk, was one of the most charismatic teachers there, and he really held it, I thought. And when we came to all line up in a line and produce the Igni sign, there was a big pyrotechnic explosion. Igni!
Perfect.
Which was great, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realise that was going to happen."
Oh, that's great.
And then we tried the Ard sign, which is the force push sign, and there was a training dummy. We've moved on to a different site, and he asked someone to come up and say, "Who wants to try first?" And this lady walks up and tries, and I was thinking, "How are they going to do this?"
Yeah.
And then she does it, and the training dummy wobbles. So I was like, "What? How the?"
Brilliant.
And then I did it, and it fell down. So obviously there's some sort of wire or string. And I spent the whole class looking around, and I couldn't see it. And but it was just enough, and it worked well. But then, for instance, he did an Ard sign on the floor, which was going to knock all the people down around him, which was our group.
Right.
So this needed willing participation from all of us, which it got in abundance. But it sort of dropped suggestions that he was like, "This will probably knock you off your feet."
Right. But that's nice.
And yeah, that lesson worked very well. As did the monster crew. Were obviously people in costumes.
Right.
But it was done at night time, and they were obscured, and the belief they put into it.
Yeah.
And the effort they put into it.
It kind of carries you away with it, right? Yeah.
There's a baby.
And also, they were quite scary in that you knew that if you got hit or lashed, your character might possibly die.
Right.
Or take serious injuries. And we'd made potions, which we actually were mixing potions. Obviously not potions that can restore you, but it was like a proper kind of chemistry lesson.
Right.
And the monsters came charging you, and they didn't die easily. They really went for you as well. There was a moment where a ghoul came at me and leapt at me and slashed me in the face. My glasses went flying. I went but I sort of overdid it. I went sprawling back in the the dark cold behind me, and I was like, oh my eye! And then they put these special effect scars on me the next day to kind of simulate the injury that I'd had. But the drowners were the real highlight for me. We came down on this trial, and there's a little lake, and again it was dark. And we could hear they did good voices, this snarling.
Right.
And this guy, this drowner, who's a guy, emerges from the water.
Oh, wow.
I was like, whoa!
He must have been freezing.
Yeah, well, he had a wetsuit, but he has to.
Right.
So there are different, there are main groups, and then they're split into two. So there are a number of groups of 5 people, maybe half a dozen, maybe more. And they have to reset the encounters each time.
Oh, wow,
for these people. So my hat went off to this guy, who I later found out was a plant in our group at the beginning, so he could get eaten by the werewolf on the first night. And he was also the ghoul that pounced on me.
Oh, amazing.
And
a hard-working Joe.
Yeah, and they were excellent, because those are the events that you think, oh, that could be a bit cringy.
Yeah.
But generally the encounters were brutal, because they really went for you.
Yeah.
But memorable and pulled off just well enough. And all through the day there was a building storyline going on in the background as well, which was about the princess / werewolf had been turned up with a sorceress and a posse of Temerian soldiers, and this was playing out over the course of the weekend. And then they found out that there was a murderous event that the school had been founded on, which the witches had willingly participated in, which they would then stand trial for.
Right.
And it was interesting. Just after I had this wobble, and I was like, oh, I can't buy into this anymore, I'm too tired.
Yeah.
Me and the guy who I confided with got singled out by the Grandmaster after lunch, and we were like, what? Like, how did they know that?
Yeah.
And because we were right at the top of this dormitory tower as well. And then he took us right up to the top ramparts of this castle. The castle was magnificent on this hill overlooking. It was cold all the time.
Yeah.
It was like a fridge, that castle. But it was magnificent, just being and sleeping and living in a castle. And he confided in us his story and how he did it out of, and it turns out he killed the last Grandmaster. But he did it out of love, because. And then we came back down, we were straight back in.
Good.
We were wobbling, and then I don't know how they knew.
Yeah.
Were the witches? Of course they knew.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we had a really pleasant evening of making fires and throwing actual axes into trees, which wasn't.
Your gloves do smell like a fire. Actually, you smell brilliant right now.
Lots of fires, but I've got lots of lumps and bruises. After it.
So, okay, obviously you are now a fully fledged Witcher, so I'll let you go and murder whatever monsters terrorising Brighton.
Yeah, because there are lots. But there was a notice board with, they put a notice board of contracts and things.
That's amazing. What's the one thing that you learnt in Witcher school that, you're most going to take forward with you as you carry on your new life as Witcher Bertie?
Sword fighting. It's absolute sword fighting.
That eminently useful skill.
Yeah, well, you never know when you're in a newsagent and you'll need to, take down a monster.
Fair enough. Well, I hope if I ever get pounced by one in a newsagent.
Oh, look, there's a sword.
Oh, actually, yeah. We have got.
I don't think you can lose one.
Right, so there you go. That's yours.
Thank you very much. I'll pop that in my strap over my shoulder.
Yep.
And kill some monsters.
Great. Well, thanks very much for keeping us safe.
You're welcome.
Sex. That's why we're here, isn't it?
By my extensive research, there are 9 sex scenes in The Witcher 3. 9! That is ridiculous for a game that isn't even really about sex. However, some of them are remarkably similar. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you disturbing evidence that Geralt of Rivia, slayer of monsters and lover of women, is crap in bed.